This video, we're going to connect to a signal. The interface is going to be pretty simple. We have a start button, a stop button, and a status label. So we're going to start a timer, stop a timer, and get the current timer status. That being said, we're going to have a backend class and a signal is going to be emitted, and we're going to read, or I should say connect to that signal inside of QML, and that's how this whole magic happens. Our QML interface is very, very basic. 3 main components we have to worry about. Already got the QML queued up and ready to go. It should be dead simple. Let's go ahead and right click on sources, add new. We're going to add a C++ class. Let's call this test. This is going to be a Q object. Next, finish. And there's going to be a little bit of copy and paste going on here just to save some time. So includes Q object, Q timer, Q date time, Q variant. Very important we use Q variant, and Q debug. Now, why is it important we use Q variant? Because the data we pass back and forth from C++ to QML is going to be wrapped inside of a Q variant. Signals, we're going to say void notice. And this is going to be us posting a signal out into the world of Qt, and a slot can connect to it. We're going to say Q variant, and this is going to be called data. Now I want some private slots and some public slots. The private slot, I'm going to say void timeout. This is going to be our internal timer. And then our public slots, this is what we're going to interact with the QML. I'm going to say void start and void stop. And I see my keyboard is being super helpful. There we go. And then private, we're going to make our Q timer. Let's call this M timer, and a Q string, which is going to be our display. Pretty simple. Let's go ahead and flesh this out. So we're going to right click, and we're going to add that. Add that, and let's go ahead and finally add this. Now inside our implementation, we need to do a little bit of a connection. So we're going to say connect. Let's go ahead and go M timer. We're going to connect to the Q timer timeout. So we need the timeout. And we're going to connect it to this object, timeout slot. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. The rest of this is pretty much just configuration. So I'm going to say M timer. We want to set the interval at 1 second. And then M display. And then let's going to say Q info. And actually, you know what? Let's just do the display, make it easier on us. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and emit our first notice. So we're going to say emit notice. And we're going to say Q variant. And we're just going to wrap our display in that Q variant. Now, before we get too much further, I actually want to go back, and we're going to hook this up into our root context. Again, need our imports. So I'm going to paste those in there. The Q, QML context, QDebug, and QTest don't really need QDebug, but I'm going to add that in there anyways. Let's go ahead and test. And then we're going to say engine. And I want to do a root context, and we're going to set context property. It's very, very almost exactly the same. Actually, it is the same as the last video. And let's go ahead and go test. So we're just going to give it a reference to this instance of the test class. So nothing on the back end C++ side has really changed. Now we can go in and start playing around with this. And I'm going to flesh this class out a little bit more. Go into our timeout. I'm going to say M display. and I want Q date time, and let's go with current date time, toString. And then we're just going to grab a little copy and paste action here. So every time that timer fires, it's just going to get the current date time, update the display, emit the notice, and we're good to go. So let's go in here, and let's say display starting. This is when the timer is actually going to start. And let's go ahead and do a bang. Just going to do a QInfo, and then we're going to emit our notice signal, and then timer. We're going to go ahead and start that. And we can pretty much do the same thing here. We can grab this, copy paste, go ahead and stop. Ta-da! So let's change this around so it actually makes sense. Very, very basic C++. So our test class is going to create, we're going to connect our signal and slot, we're going to configure the timer, emit our initial display. When that timer fires, we're going to actually update it with the current time. Actually, I'm getting the current date time, and emit our notice, and then starting and stopping the timer. Very, very simplistic class. Give it a good build, make sure we didn't goof anything up. I'm actually going to run it just to make sure it actually does fire up. Now we can jump over to QML land. Notice I've got this right here. This is the root context, meaning that timer, not the timer, the test class that has the timer is available at the root context. We're going to do a few things. First off, we're going to jump down to our buttons here. We're going to say on clicked, and I'm going to say testing dot, and this is the start button, so I want to go ahead and start that timer. And we can also say on the stop button, on click testing dot, and I want to go ahead and stop that. Save and run. Let's look at our app output here, and we've already got that QInfo. I'm going to clear this. Go ahead and click. So starting, and we can actually see the timers firing, and we can stop. What we need to do now is update the status. So let's go in, and we're going to actually kind of violate my own little rule here. I don't like working with connections, but this is a perfect example of why you would. So I'm going to say connections, target, and you guessed it, our target's going to be testing. And this is our C++ object on the root context. So we can actually connect to this because it is a Q object and it has signals and slots. Now we have a signal in here. Ta-da! Notice. And in QML land, let me bring this up, we can just simply say on, and then whatever our signal name is, in this case, notice. IntelliSense really didn't help us, but I think we can get through it. So we're going to say log. And then let's go ahead and update our status. So we're going to say LBL status.text equals, and this is in case you're grasping at how we're going to get that data, it's right here. So any parameter coming back from the signal is really the variable we're going to get. Now notice it's a Q variant, very, very important. So we're going to grab that Q variant, and we're going to say data. Very, very simple. Now, sometimes the editor helps us out, sometimes it does not, and it has no idea what we're even talking about. Let's go ahead and give this a good build. No compile errors. Save, run. Let's pop this up. Let's go ahead and start. Ta-da! We have now successfully connected signals and slots from C++ and QML, and we can call those slots directly.